everyone, and welcome to a new video. I was just editing this and I realized it had nothing resembling an intro, so I thought I'd quickly come on here and film that for you now. So this video is kind of two in one. I was originally going to have a main channel video all about my purchases in the garment district, but it wasn't going to be all my purchases. It was only going to be purchases attached to specific projects that I already had conceptualized and had a main idea of what they were going to be. So it was going to be a mixture of a projects I had planned video as well as a fabric haul. And then I filmed another separate haul of all my purchases from Keepsake Quilting when I was up in New Hampshire. And I realized I didn't want to make either of those videos public, not because I don't like them. I think they're relatively entertaining and I really enjoy filming and editing, and even watching back fabric hauls. It makes me feel really inspired. But I decided that I wanted to do the projects I had planned and the fabric haul in a blog post form instead. It's kind of a way to kickstart my blog and talk about some of the projects I had planned and some of the things that might be coming in the near future. However, by that point, I had already filmed this, and it seems like a waste to just trash this footage, so I thought I would share it with all of you as a little bonus video. So there are going to be another 2 Patreon exclusive videos coming up this month. This was just something that I wanted to share on top of that. And speaking of Patreon, I'm sorry I've been so neglectful over the past couple of weeks. I've had some sponsored stuff hanging over my head and some call stuff going on, but I think in the future I'm not going to take on any more sponsored videos, and I'm just going to focus on creating higher quality content on my own time for Patreon. Also, there have been some complaints about the lack of sewing content, which is completely valid. I have a video all about making a blouse to go under the 1980s project, which will be coming up soon, along with another mock-up mayhem vlog. And then publicly, I will be making a video about Elizabethan project, as well as my medieval project. Both of those are at least partially filmed, so they should be coming in the near future as well. So thank you so much for your patience, and I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk to all of you guys very soon. So the first project I'm going to talk about is one you'll already have heard of if you follow me over on Patreon. Recently I had a series of polls where my patrons got to vote on a project they thought I should make, and the winner for that ended up being a historically accurate version of Anastasia. And I also let people vote on which design from the movie I should make, and everyone wanted the ending gown, the Russian court gown. So I came up with a design for that that's based on a lot of historical examples, and then I tried to find fabrics that both looked somewhat historical, but also really had that princess feel to them. So these are the materials that I've purchased. We'll start with the main fabric, which is this beautiful brocade that I purchased 8 yards of. And I wanted a brocade for this project because I thought that better represented the princessy nature. And I did find a Russian court gown from 1900, I believe, that was made entirely out of brocade. So I ended up finding one that has a gold base, so it looks really nice with the gold trim that would be historically accurate, but also has some of those blushy pink tones in it, which resembles Anastasia's actual gown. And then to go underneath that, I wanted to find a contrasting kind of darker pinkish tone fabric so it would look more like the dress of the movie, but I couldn't find any historical examples where the gown underneath the court dress was darker than the outer robe portion. So I ended up finding something that's kind of slightly lighter than the darkest portions of this, but also darker than the lightest portions, which I feel like is a happy medium. And again, this is brocade, and both of these are polyester because I couldn't find silks in my price range that were in the patterns I wanted, but I think these are going to be really, really striking as a base for Anastasia. And the sheen these have is just stunning. Now, what really makes Russian court gowns stand out is all of the trim on them, and I am not talented enough at embroidery to do all of that trim by hand, so I decided to cheat and buy some fusible embroidered trims, and I bought quite a lot of them, like several $100s worth. So the first ones that caught my eye are a leaf print, and it's just kind of a wandering leaf design, and it's quite delicate looking and really resembles the embroidery that you see on Russian court gowns. So I got 2 bolts of those, and there are 10 yards on each bolt. Then I also got 10 yards of this slightly thicker but also more narrow trim, which I think I'm going to use around the sleeves as well as the front of the dress. Then also for the front of the dress, I got 10 yards of this one, which has white little flowers on it, which really ties together all of the tones in the fabric that I purchased. But we're not done! There's also a lot of smaller trims that goes around the Russian court gowns. So I got 15 yards of this braided gold trim and 15 yards of this gold, almost military type braid. And if you're wondering where to get reasonably priced military braids, Daytona trim is fantastic. So that was my trim haul for this project, and it was an expensive haul indeed, but I think the finished result is going to be gorgeous. I also bought some golden colored beads so I can embellish this trim further, and I'm going to order some seed beads online because I couldn't quite find what I was looking for in the garment district. However, I did buy some sequins in various colors, and I've got lots more gold sequins in my stash so I can jazz up this trim even further. And then lastly, I have a few little bits of jewelry that I purchased in New Hampshire on a recent trip. And I'm going to be ordering a tiara for this project and altering it. So I have a pair of earrings, I've got this really pretty necklace, and I've got another pearl necklace which I'm planning on altering. So that, my friends, is the haul for Anastasia. So next up I have all of the materials for a 1740s costume. And this is based on a fashion plate I found when I was researching riding habits and just fell in love with. It's a very interesting jacket with open short sleeves, and the dress underneath is quite pretty and has a really delicate, lovely sheen to it. So I want to make something similar to this and play around with some of my tailoring work, but also in a very feminine way, which was depicted in the 1740s. So these are the materials that I found for that project. The first fabric that I found is a silk satin in this really dark green color. And this fabric was really difficult to find because nowhere had silk satin. I ended up going into Butterfly Silks, which I don't usually visit, and they had a huge selection of silk satins, and they were $25 a yard. So I ended up getting 3 yards of this one, and it's exactly what I was looking for. It's a really fantastic quality fabric, and I think 3 yards is going to be enough to make this jacket. It's more than I wanted to pay. It's more than I pay at stores that I have a better relationship with, but I think it was worth it because the color is amazing. Then I also wanted to find a fabric for chemise to go underneath that you would see underneath the sleeves of the jacket. So I ended up finding this organza at the same place, and it's got beigey tones in it, but it's also got that green, and I think these look really, really lovely together. And then I think for opacity, I'm going to put this fabric underneath, which is a quilting cotton, a premium quilting cotton from Joann's that has metallic threads in it. And the base of this is kind of a warm toned taupe, but then all the threads are silver. So I think this is really going to combine the warm kind of ivory tones in this with the cooler gray tones. And that's important because the actual dress is going to be gray. So this is the fabric I'm going to use for the dress, and this is something that I purchased from Fabric Mart with no specific project in mind. It is a satin suiting, so it's very thick. It feels almost like a file, but it's got a really pretty sheen to it, which I think is going to be perfect for this project. And it's in, again, that warmy gray tone, which really looks nice with the other fabrics I purchased for this project. And this is also a really big piece of fabric, so I'm excited to get it out of my stash and turned into a dress. But of course it doesn't end there. I also purchased trim for this project, again from Daytona Trimming, and I'm going to be using this for a different project as well, so I purchased 50 yards of it. I only needed 30, but they gave me a really good discount if I purchased a little bit extra. So that's going to be used around buttonholes on the jacket as well as the entire perimeter of the jacket. And then I just found this trim that I thought was really pretty and matched the colors in the project really nicely, so I'm going to use this to make a little choker to go with it. And I might jazz it up with some more sequins and pearls because it's a little bit bland. So that is another project down, and I'm really, really excited about this one. It's a period I haven't ventured into before, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It really combined a lot of different skills that I have and that I really enjoy. So next up I have all the materials for a project that my true fans should have heard of because I mentioned this in an 1830s sketching vlog. I also showed the sketch for this in a monthly vlog, and I said that it was my favorite sketch and I really wanted to recreate it. So I'm very happy to report that I actually have all the materials for it. I guess I should say what this project is first. This is going to be an 1830s or 1840s archery costume, and it's based on several fashion plates that I really appreciate, and those fashion plates feature arsenic green dresses. I just so happen to have this variegated silk in that exact color. And then in keepsake quilting, I stumbled across this homespun that was reduced down to $2.99 a yard. They had 4 or 5 yards of it if I recall correctly, and it matches perfectly, and also has a stripe that kind of mimics the variegated stripe in the silk. So I'm going to use these together in some manner to create that costume. I don't know if this is going to be a chemise underneath it or if I'm going to fussy cut these stripes out to use them to trim the dress or what. And then I also purchased a feather to go with that project, and I have this feather in my stash which I think complements it really nicely. As for trims, I have 2 little stash finds that I'm hoping to use for this. This I purchased from an estate, and this I don't know where it came from, but I really like how these trims look together, and I really like how they look with the fabrics. So that is my fabric plan for that project, and the sketch should make the rest of my plans for that project quite clear. So next up is the project most outside of what I usually make, but also the project that I'm most excited about. So this entire project is centered around a packet of skulls that I purchased when I was in New Hampshire. And these are the skulls in question. So these are micro skulls from Scandal, and I thought these were adorable. They're just so interesting in the way they're made. They look almost like they're carved out of stone, but they've got a geometric shape to them that makes them look quite modern as well. So I saw these and I instantly thought I could do a medieval crown out of them. So I purchased a set of 50 in the charcoal gray, and then I also purchased a larger one in this pinkish terracotta kind of color. I don't know if I'm going to end up using this one. Overall, I definitely leaned more towards the gray color scheme. But to go with those, I picked up a bunch of beads, and I actually found the beads before the fabric. Specifically, I bought a whole bunch of these beads from Joann's, which have the black base to them, but all of these little rhinestones that bring out the rosier tones. I also purchased a few strands of your typical black shiny beads I thought I could use as spacers for the miniature skulls. And then my mom and I went into a bead store where I found all of these, and these combine the black and gray really nicely and match the skulls pretty much perfectly. So I think these are going to serve as more of the main beads for the project, but I do still like the other ones that I purchased. So with those purchased, now it's time to find fabric. And the first fabric I found for this project is actually from Joann's. This is another one of their new premium cottons. So it feels almost like a glazed linen / quilting cotton. It's very thin, but since it has metallic fibers in it, it's a little bit stiffer than their other fabrics. It has the most beautiful sheen to it. It almost looks like water, the way that light reflects off of it. It's stunning. And this particular variant is the dark silver with silver woven through it. And again, this looks really nice with the charcoal tones of the skull, and it also matches the gray in these beads perfectly. So then when I went to New York City, I had this in mind, and I wanted to find fabrics for a chemise and overdress, because my plan is for this to be a fitted, almost Renaissance medieval-like dress with a lot of detailing around the neckline, and I'm thinking a lot of Cranach paintings as inspiration, so I want there to be lots of little sleeve puffs and fiddly detail work out of an overall quite plain fabric, even though this fabric is gorgeous and it's not really plain. And then I want to have almost like a cloak / cape / robe thing over top, which isn't really based at all in history, because this whole project is more fantasy, medieval, Renaissance inspired than it is historically accurate. And I also want to find fabrics for a chemise, because I want to do a very low neckline where the chemise would be visible underneath it. So the chemise fabric I found was from Ahmad's Fabrics, and this fabric has diagonal stripes in it that are black, and then it has gray pinstripes woven through it as well. And it almost has a sheen to it. It's really lovely. I don't know what type of fabric it is, but it feels like a mixture between silk and cotton. It's relatively stiff though, and I thought this would pair really nicely with the silver of this, as well as the darker gray and black tones. And then from Diana's Fabrics, I found this brocade, which I thought was the perfect final fabric for all of this. So it combines those darker black tones that I wanted, but also has a lot of the gray in it. It just looks perfect. And it's a really nice weight too. I think it's going to provide the volume that I want for the cape. And I'm just really, really excited about this project. I genuinely can't wait to get started on it. It's so different from what I usually do. It really reminds me of the projects I used to gravitate towards when I first started sewing. And then also, because clearly I didn't have enough embellishments for this, I also purchased some really pretty Montes, and these are just plastic rhinestones that have holes in them effectively. And I also purchased some really interesting diamond-shaped stones. And by stones I mean little bits of resin, but they've got a really cool sheen to them that I just adore. So I think these would look really, really cool around the neckline of this project. So now is another project with a similar but equally unusual for me type of color palette. So this is going to be for a gown from the late 1600s, and it will consist of a dress, a robe, as well as a cape and a headpiece. And I'm really, really excited about this project, and I'm really excited about the materials that I found for it. Finding these materials was kind of a struggle. Right off the back I came across a lot of brocades that I liked, but as for finding fabrics to go with the brocades, it became a little bit more complicated. And then I stumbled across this fabric for the main dress at Ahmad's Fabrics, and I just fell in love. So it looks almost like a glazed linen, and it's got a dark brown base, but it's kind of a cool toned brown instead of a reddish brown, and it has all of this silver woven through it, so it has the most vibrant, coolest sheen when the light hits it. So I bought the 9 yards of that, and then I went over to Diana's Fabrics and I found this brocade. So this has the silver sheen to it and black base, but actually pairs really well with the brown in this. So I ended up purchasing this for the cloak / robe to go over top of it. And then I found this mushroom / brownish toned silk velvet that I thought paired really well with all of them. So this is, again, that cooler toned brown, and it's got almost a gray sheen to it. So it works really well with both the browns and the silvers and the blacks in these fabrics. And to go with that, I just picked up a ostrich feather, as well as quite a few trims. The main trim for this project is going to be the same trim as the 1740s jacket, so it's just a really, really pretty silver lace that pairs really nicely with all of these materials. But I also picked up some trims for around the waist as well as a headpiece. So I have this very stiff, very, very pretty black sequined and beaded lace. And then I purchased this for the belt and the hat, and it is a seed bead lace trim that is brown. And again, I think these just like really tie everything together. And then this was not purchased for this project, but it is some really pretty sequin trim that I got in Pennsylvania, and it's woven into a mesh design. And if I can figure out how to incorporate that, then I definitely will. So that is my haul for this project, and this is probably the project whose color palette and fabric I'm most excited about. I think they all really came together beautifully, and I can't wait to see this become a reality. So this next pile is the things that were not on my list. So when I went to the garment district, I really wanted to find fabric for some pieces inspired by 1860s gowns out of magazines. As you might know, I've been doing a series on making hoop skirts, and one of those hoop skirts is going to be an elliptical hoop. So I really wanted to settle on a design for the 1860s that I was passionate about, that I could get fabric for. But I was just too undecided. I couldn't combine the designs I was interested in into something singular to search for fabric for. So I ended up having a whole bunch of references on my phone, and I didn't find anything that would work for any of them, except for the wedding dress that I took a picture of for Instagram before I left. So I ended up buying materials for an 1860s wedding gown. I don't know when this is going to happen, but I really like the fabrics, and I knew I would regret not getting them. So the first fabric that really sparked this whole process is a beautiful polyester silk charmeuse that has an ivory base with these slightly lighter matte lines woven through it, and the sheen of this is gorgeous. I know it's polyester, but it just looks beautiful. It's so pretty. It really resembles silk, and the color and weight of this is just stunning. So I think I'm going to use that for a petticoat, and then over top of that, I'm going to have this beautiful silk satin. So I got this from Amont's Fabric, so it was closer to $20 a yard. The way the light is hitting this is showing up as a vastly different color than this, but in person they look very similar. This is a lot warmer, and the ivories actually match pretty nicely. So I'm going to use this for an overdress and this for an underdress. Then I also purchased some really pretty lace trim that I'm hoping to incorporate into that, as well as this silver trim that has that vine pattern on it as well. So I'm really excited about this. I don't have an exact design figured out just yet, but I think it's going to be gorgeous, and I can't wait to get working on it. Now on to a pink project. So this project I want to be based off of a painting that I just adore, and I will put a picture of it on screen. This was inspired by that painting and the desire to make a natural form era gown in a similar shape to this one. But I also really like the trim on this dress because it reminds me of a trim I've seen in the garment district for literal years, but never wanted to spend the money on. So this is a gorgeous metallic trim, and it's on a mesh base, so you can actually fussy cut out the flowers. So I thought this would be gorgeous if I fussy cut out the flowers and spaced them apart, and then filled in the in-between portions with a whole bunch of coordinating sequins to get a slightly lighter looking trim all the way around the dress. So I ended up purchasing, I think, 10 yards of this, and at this place you get 50% off if you purchase the full bolt, which is why I have so many bolts shown throughout this video. If you need more than 5 yards, it usually ends up being cheaper to just buy the bolt, and that was the case in this situation. So that served as my color palette basis for all of this. However, I did not find a silk satin for this project that was in my price range. So I ended up purchasing 8 yards of this polyester satin from Diana's Fabrics, which I think matches the trim and the original dress really nicely. And then I actually already had this polyester file in my stash, which is a more bubblegummy pink, but it actually looks really nice with the trim as well. So I'm thinking I might be able to combine these somehow and end up with a slightly more dynamic looking dress. Then to go with that, I also purchased a feather, because of course I did. It needs a headpiece, and that headpiece is going to need a feather. And then I also purchased 7 yards of this mesh, which I thought I could use kind of to drape portions, because it's got a really nice lightweight texture to it. Then I also grabbed 3 yards of satin face chiffon in an ivory tone. That's the color palette for this project, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to be gorgeous, even if it doesn't resemble the original dress as closely as I'd originally intended. And then I went kind of crazy with sequins for this project. As I said, I want to fussy cut out this trim and have it separated so it doesn't look as dense. So to fill out the portions where it is separated, I purchased some green sequins, some pink beads, some lilac sequins, and some pink and yellow. And I think that is everything.